Good afternoon and welcome everybody to the Bluebeam Meetup series of webinars. We're really pleased that so many people have taken their valuable time out of their day to attend. Just a bit of housekeeping, all attendees will be in listen only mode. However, if you look on the right hand side, we have left the Q&A section open. You can leave questions and at the end of the webinar, we'll endeavour to address all of those one by one. If we do run out of time, don't worry, any of your questions that are put into the chat box, we will be following those up individually. So moving on to the agenda, today we'll be looking at settings and preferences and how you can set up your review licenses to maximize productivity and efficiency. I know many of the users are already quite experienced in Bluebeam Revu. However, we're going to be going through lots of tips and tricks, some of which you might not have considered. So without further ado, I'll introduce my colleague Troy. Troy is the leading certified Bluebeam instructor in the world. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Troy.
Thanks for the introduction, guys, and good afternoon, Bluebeamers. My name is Troy DeGroot with U Chapter 2, and I'm excited to partner with the team at BricsTech and Brighter Graphics to deliver world-class Bluebeam training and customization services so you can get the most out of your Bluebeam investment. Today's webinar is going to be a little different from ones you may have seen in the past. Typically, we show a few tools and functionality tips. We'll do the same. We'll do a few of those today, but this one's going to be packed full of settings and preferences that will serve as essentially tips and tricks that stay active after turning them on. We're going to lay the foundation for saving time and creating more accurate markups and measurements in review. Be ready to take notes. I have about 40 bullet items today we're going to cruise through in the next 35 minutes. You can enter your questions in the chat as we go, and we'll be sure to answer as many as possible in whatever time remaining at the end. So let's dive in right away. We're going to go up and look at the menu bar today. So I'm going to go up under Review to start out in the upper left corner. We'll start at the bottom of the list here. Exit, of course, is going to close the program. Unregistered. So with Bluebeam Revu, you have the ability to install a single license on more than one computer. So you could have it on your laptop and your desktop at the office. The trick there is that you're going to have to unregister on one of them before you can register on the other. You can only have it active on one, so you have to remember to unregister and register in order to share that license with those machines. The next one here is the administrator. When I click on that, it's going to open up a window here asking me if I want to allow administrator to make edits. So I'm going to click yes. It's going to open up this window here, and you'll notice if you have Bluebeam CAD or Extreme, you will have plugins here for the different software on your machine, like Revit, the Microsoft suites, and you can check those and turn them on, and it will put a add-in button in the ribbon, so you can print directly from those softwares. And then you can dive into the network, the net config. You'll see different where things are pointed here, and then printer settings as well. This is where you can make some adjustments to how you want things to print. So here, I'm just going to cancel this one. Back up to review. Next one is keyboard shortcuts. When I click on that one, it's going to open up this window here. And on the Tools tab, you can see all of the tools available in Bluebeam Revu and all of the shortcuts over here. With these, you are able to customize these. So if you're used to your CAD software and C means something in particular, you can change that in here. So let's just say ellipse is going to be E. We use that for circles also, so I'm going to type in a C. It's actually going to tell me that it's currently being used by cloud and ask me if I want to reassign it. So I can do that or not. I can decide at that point, yeah, I do want C to be cloud, reassign it, and then it'll take it off of ellipse for us. So you can go through and mimic what you have in CAD. All that muscle memory can carry through to Bluebeam Revu. And then also under commands, you have different commands in here, Control O to open and things like that. You can go through and either customize these or just view them and see what they are as a learning tool. So those are your keyboard shortcuts. So that window, back up here. Next is profile. So profiles, what a profile is basically the entire interface of Bluebeam Revu. So what tools are turned on, which ones are turned off, where they're located, all the way around the perimeter of the interface. And we can build custom profiles to fit your company, turn off all the tools you'll never use, reduce that clutter, and turn on the ones that you do need. So some different examples here. If I go to the tool chest for this particular profile, you'll see some tools that I built during classes, estimating classes. If I switch over to a different version of Bluebeam I have open, you'll see I have a profile for a concrete contractor. I have slabs, walls, piers, and then all of my custom tools that we built for slabs. So you can customize your profile, the interface of Bluebeam Revu, to have just the tools that you need. Click back into this one, back up to review. Markup mode and view mode. So depending on what type of license you have, you may want to look in here. If you're in markup mode, that means that you can actually make markups on the drawing. If you're in view mode, that means that you can only view PDFs. You can't mark them up, and you're actually not pulling a license from the pool of shared licenses there. So if you stay in view mode, you're not actually using a license. You're just viewing those. As soon as you move it to, as soon as you highlight blue, the markup mode, now you're pulling a license from that pool and you're able to mark things up. Okay. Next one up here is our preferences. I'm going to click in here. We'll spend a little bit of time here today. First off, under General on the left, Options on the top, I'm going to have you guys fill in your full first and last name for your username. And this is going to show up in a few different places in Bluebeam. Those of you that have been using Bluebeam Revu for a while, you'll know that there's a markups list down at the bottom that records all of the markups that you're doing, and it's going to tell us who the author is. So this is where it's pulling that author name is your username. Also, if you're using some interactive stamps that maybe it's an approved stamp, it has the date automated and the user, it will pull your name and the date that you place that markup onto the stamp. So we want to make sure this says your full first and last name. A lot of times that defaults to a computer name or some sort of an abbreviation or something like that. I would change that to your full first and last name. And if we go over here to grid and snap, you'll see just like in CAD, when we start drawing lines and doing measurements, we can snap to the content of the PDF. So snap to the line work in the drawing. We can also snap to markups that we place. And then as we do those, you'll see here all of the different snap options. So snap to lines, curves, midpoint, endpoint, intersections, page boundaries, all those different settings, very, very similar to your CAD software. So this is where you can set those to turn on and off your preferences there. If we jump over to spelling, little tip in here, we of course have our different spelling settings here, but we also have enable autocomplete. If I click on manage, a lot of times because I build a lot of custom tools for customers, I'll come in here and I need to clear different things. So if I jump into my name here, I can select my name here, I guess, go into, if I want to look at just the subject, these are all the different subject entries that I've put in. And I can look through here if there's ones I'm never going to use again. If there's ones that are spelled wrong, I can select those and clear it using the X, or I can clear all, depending on how I want to clean up this list. If there's spelling errors, it's annoying to go in there and go to enter a subject and you constantly see that one that's spelled wrong. So you can come in here and clear that from the subject so you never see it again. So kind of a cool little tip there. You can clear all of those different categories of the different settings and entries that you don't need anymore. Next, we're going to go to back over to options. Let's go down a few and look at some of these. Okay, we'll go to tools on the left here, and under markups, one that I like to keep on is the reuse tools. What that means is when I draw a line, if this is checked on, I can continue drawing lines until I hit escape and tell it that I'm done with that tool. If I turn this off, as soon as I finish a line, it kicks me out of that command and I need to go select it again. So I like to leave this one on so I can just continually use that same tool until I decide that I'm done. Just below that, auto size text box and callout markups. What that means is when I draw a text box and I finish typing, it's going to shrink the box to fit the text. So let's jump out and show you what that one looks like. I'm going to say okay. I grab my text box and I just draw the box. Usually you're going to draw it bigger than you think the text is going to be. And then you're just going to type in whatever your note is going to be. This is a text box. And you'll notice when I click off of this, two things are going to happen. It's going to shrink the box because of that auto size text box check mark. And it's also going to start a new text box because I have my reuse tool checked on. So here you can see it shrunk and it's asking me to draw another box. I'm just going to hit escape to cancel that. But there you can see how those two tools work together. That's your reuse, where it started a new text box, and auto size, where it shrinks the text to fit the box. Okay. Next, we're going to go to the measure tab. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the tool dynamic fill. I'll show you that in a second. But boundary size is one that I like to change down to about 40%. I don't remember what the default is, but I know it's too big. So 40%. I'll jump out again here and show you how that tool works and what I mean by the boundary size. I'm going to jump over to my measurement panel, grab my dynamic fill tool, and pull this up here. And how dynamic fill works is we want to measure the area of this office. And in order to do that, I need a continuous line all the way around the perimeter of the room. Because I have an open door here, I need to add a boundary. So I'm going to come up here, add a boundary, and you'll see the thickness of that dot is roughly the thickness of this wall, pretty close. And that's where that 40% sets the thickness of this boundary line. So I just click on one end, double click on the other, and it closes that door for me. And now with dynamic fill, I'm going to select my paint bucket. I need to tell it what to report, so I'm going to select my area. And then I'm just going to come in here and start pouring paint. I'm going to let it fill the room. When it's done, I'm going to come up here and hit apply. And it's going to give me the area of that space. So that's always going to land on top of something. Another quick tip here, if you hold your shift key down, you can move that text without moving the whole markup. And then of course, if you want to switch this over to square meters as your default, you can do that as well. Any of these markups, when you change the settings over here, if you go to your properties, go down to options, you can set as default so that you're getting those settings every time you use that tool. So little sidetrack tip there. So that is dynamic fill. And that setting that we set was the thickness of that door line that we added. Again, if we go in here, under measure, that was the 40% boundary size under tools and measure. Again, we're going quick through these, so I hope you guys are taking notes and able to set some of these. The next one, we're going to go down to Studio. And in here, I like to have this top one checked where it says attempt to check out files on open. Studio Projects and Studio Sessions is the cloud portion of Bluebeam. Studio Projects is where we can upload documents, share them with whoever we want. They can open them, edit them, save them back to the project. But what this one means is when I open that, it will automatically attempt to check it out. So I don't have to remember to, after I open it, I don't have to remember to check it out before I do any edits or start editing it and get the errors and things like that. So I like to just attempt to check it out automatically when I open those documents. Okay. Let's see. Where's the other one? This second one here. I think this one's checked on by default. Enable flashing effect on studio alerts. So when we're in a studio session, let me jump back over here. When we're in a studio session and we have a bunch of people invited over here and we're all marking up these drawings at the same time, a lot of times this is going to flash orange with the activity that's happening in that session. When people are doing markups, when they're sending you notifications. We're going to cover all that in a different webinar, but for a lot of people, they were asking, how do I turn off that orange flashing? And that's going to be that setting that we were just looking at. Under Studio, Options, Enable Flashing Effect, I check and turn that off so it's not flashing at me. Okay, then we're going to jump down to Admin, I believe. And under Options, Default PDF Viewer. So we have Bluebeam, we love Bluebeam, and we're going to set that to be our default viewer. You're going to go and click here. It's going to open up your computer settings. This is the computer setting, not a Bluebeam setting. And you're going to scroll down. You're going to come in here, search by app, and you want to go in, look for a PDF. Oh, sorry. You're going to search by file type. So here we're going to do PDF. Select that. It's going to bring us to that one, and then if it's set to Adobe or some other viewer, you're going to select that. It will know that Bluebeam is installed, so you can select that, and now all of your PDF icons are going to change to the blue instead of red or anything like that, and it's going to automatically open up in Bluebeam if it's a PDF. So if you double click in an email or whatever the case may be, it's going to open it in Bluebeam like we want it to. So that's that one. Okay, so we're going to go over to netconfig, and in here, this is just going to tell you where your stamps are saved. So this is the default location where those are saved. You can always browse to another location if you want to share those. Same thing with email templates. This is where those are being saved and drawn from. Next, I want to show you, we'll go back to options. So after today's webinar, after you set all of these settings and you get everything looking the way that you want, you're going to want to go to the admin tab again, go to options and backup. You want to back up all your settings and save that somewhere. And then if you upgrade your software or like me, my computer crashed last week, had a bit of a stressful week last week, but you can always go back and restore that, pulling from that backup that you saved. So I would encourage you, once in a while to come in here and back up your settings. Okay, so that's it for preferences. I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to show you one more thing in here under profiles. So I showed you where the email templates are and where the stamp templates are. If we go to profiles and come down here to manage profiles, this is the folder location for where your profiles and your tool sets are all saved by default. So that's kind of my trick to go find where these are. Sometimes I'll create, because I'm in here a lot, I created a shortcut on my desktop to get to this folder. So, but just know this is where it's saved, and this is where you can go find those tool sets or profile files. Cancel that. Okay, let's, the last one here is about. When I come in here, just like every other software, it's going to tell you which version you have. So I have the extreme version, tells me what version I'm on. I obviously need to update mine, but you'll see your serial number and all of that in here as well. And once you know what version you have, you'll be able to check out the link in the chat. I'll drop in there the link to compare the different versions to see which tools you need and where they're found in those versions. Okay, next we're going to jump over to the file menu here. A lot of these are just like any other software you use. Save, open, new, all of those are in here. The one that I wanted to show under file is the export features. So down here, really cool tools. We can export our PDFs to a JPEG or a PNG. The big ones that I want to show though, I'm going to jump over to my other version again here and show you guys how to export. So I'm going to go to File, Export. I've got a PDF of a document here. I'm going to go down to Export Word document. I can do the entire document, or I can just do a page region. And I just draw a box around whatever I want to export. Save that into whatever location I want. And it's going to open up a Word document for me with all of that text typed out in Word, so I could go ahead and edit those, whatever, copy and paste. A lot of times I'll do the export so I can copy and paste content from the PDF into whatever I'm working on. So that's one way of doing that, creating documents quickly. Close that. The next one, I'm going to go back to my cover sheet here where I have my sheet index. I'm going to go under File, Export again. This time I'm going to go to Excel Workbook, and I'm going to do a page region and just draw a box around my sheet index. Save this wherever. I'm going to go to my desktop. Sheet index, save, and that one's going to open up Excel. And you'll see that all of that's laid out. I can scale this up a little bit so you can see it. But those are all individual cells created from that export. So pretty cool for if you've got any sort of schedules, window schedules, things like that. You can export that information into Excel if you need to. All right, going as quick as we can here. Under the Edit menu, copy, paste, undo, redo, all of those popular ones. And then we have snapshot also. So let's go to another sheet here. Let's say I want to pull one of these details. Maybe this elevation view of a sink, and I want to pull it onto another document. I can do that with my snapshot. G is going to be the shortcut for this one. all I do is draw a window around that view. It's going to blink blue and take a picture of it, and it actually puts it on my clipboard. So now I can go wherever I want, right click and paste, and it'll put that up there as basically a markup that I can move around on my sheet wherever I want to. I can paste that into a Word document or an email, whatever I want. It makes a real quick copy screenshot of that markup or of that content. If there are markups on there, those will also come through with that screenshot as well. So great tool for that. Edit PDF content. So this is where we can come in and cut content. So these are, don't tell anybody we showed you these, but a lot of people who are signing documents won't love that we're showing you this, but we can cut content. If I want to, let's just say I want to move this part of the detail a little bit to make room for something, I can draw a window around it. It's going to cut it from the sheet, put it on my clipboard, and then I can right click and paste, move that wherever I want that to be. And once it's moved, then I would flatten that. So right click on it, flatten, we'll press it back into the paper. So it's just like the rest of the document that we printed from CAD. Okay, edit PDF content. We can also erase. So cut is going to put it on our clipboard. Erase is just going to completely remove it from the document. So as soon as I window that, it's gone. When I save it, I can't get it back. My only chance of getting this back is if I do an undo right away. I can bring that back. So be careful with that one, cutting or erasing content. And then also under here we have edit text. So if you have a vector-based drawing, you can come in. I'm going to actually go back to this one here. This one's vector-based. I'm going to go down to edit text, and I can come in here to this PDF and click into the text where I want to edit it. So you can add text in there as if you did it in the original document. Of course, check my spelling. So that one, that's your edit text under PDF content. Next, we'll go on to the view menu. There's a few things in here that I want to point out, or I guess one main one, and that is the full screen crosshair. So you'll notice when I'm in my documents, my mouse has lines on it, top to bottom, left to right. And what that does is it makes it easier for me to find my cursor. So if it's a congested area of the drawing, all lines point to my cursor so I can find it really quickly. So I like to turn that on. That's under View, Full Screen Crosshair. Highlight that blue and that will turn it on. We're not going to go over any of the document or batch functionality in here yet. We're just looking at settings and preferences today. So we're going to go under Tools and go down to Toolbars. And I want you guys to make sure that you have these top three turned on: the status bar, navigation bar, and the properties bar. Okay, we'll show you what those do or what tools are available on those in a minute. But just make sure that those are turned on. Otherwise, some of your tools that you'll use all the time are not even visible, and you probably don't even know about those. The other one in here is the reuse tool. So remember how I had the reuse tool turned on. So when I did a text box, when I clicked off of it, it tried to start another one. When I draw a line, I finish it. I can keep drawing lines until I hit escape and tell it that I'm done. That's the reuse tool right here, where you can turn that on, highlight it blue so that it's turned on. Next, we'll go under the window menu, and here, some different options. You can actually open a web browser in Bluebeam. So if you're looking up a product that's being called out, or maybe you just want to go to the Brighter Graphics website and see what training is available. You can open that up in a browser within Bluebeam. You can see all these wonderful 2-hour classes we have based on workflows, and contact those guys to set up your training. We can also go into presentation mode. So if I go under here, not with the web browser, but if I open up an actual document and I go to presentation mode, what it's going to do there is actually turn off all the tools around the perimeter and just show you the document, much like a PowerPoint presentation or things like that. And so you can project that up on your screen in that presentation view, page through your different pages of that PDF without all of your tools cluttering the screen. Okay, and then the last one for the menu bar is the help menu. In this one, you'll also see the keyboard shortcuts. This is actually a PDF instead of the one under the review where you can edit them. This is a PDF that's going to show you all of the different shortcuts that are for all of your tools to reference. So you can print this, have this on your desk, whatever the case may be. That's where those are found. And then another one that they added in Review 20 is the Find Tools and Commands. If you're looking for a tool, you don't know where the button is, you can start to type in what that's called. So if I want to work on overlay pages, I'm going to start typing O, V, and it's going to narrow it down to where it shows me overlay pages, batch or regular. So that's a great tool for finding different things when you can't find those on the screen. Okay, next, we're done with the ribbon or with the menu bar. We're going to jump down to our navigation bar, which is this bar down here. Again, if you don't see that, you're going to go up to your tools, toolbars, make sure that your navigation bar is checked on. Okay, navigation bar down here. I'll show you a few of these buttons and how they work. On the far left, we can split our screen vertical or horizontal or both up to 16 times. So I could have my drawing over here. I could have my spec document on this side. I can split this up to 16 times to show as many of these as I want. So really nice to be able to look at the drawing, look at the specs all together. If this is just something you're referencing, the spec document, you can grab onto the tab here and drag that onto another monitor if you want to. So it's not taking up your drawing real estate in Bluebeam Revu. Just pull that off to the side. You can see it. You don't need to make edits or anything like that. You still can make edits, but it's a little weird because your document's over on the other monitor and all your tools are still over here. So I always refer to it as a reference page off to the side. Okay, so again, up to 16 times you can split your screen and have those different things open. And then to close those, I just click on the X, or you can click the unsplit button down here to go back to your single document. As we go across here, one full page, this is going to be the default view when you open a large format document. So over here, Bluebeam actually knows this is a 42-inch by 30-inch document. Because that's large format, it's going to automatically put us in one full page, which means my left mouse button will move the paper and my center wheel will zoom in and zoom out. If I open up an 11 by 17 or an 8.5 by 11, the default is going to be scrolling pages here. Again, it will tell you the size of the document over here. And this time with scrolling pages, it's going to maximize the width of the document. And then your scroll wheel is going to scroll through the different pages in the document, just like Word or PowerPoint. And you can switch those at any point, just like we did here. This is a full large format. I wanted to scroll, I go to scrolling pages. I want to zoom in, I go back to my one full page. Okay, as we work our way to the middle, I keep my settings on the pan 100% of the time, so I can move my paper, zoom in, zoom out. I used to use the select arrow to be able to draw a window around things and select them. So if you go from left to right, it's going to select everything inside that window. If you go from right to left, it's going to be anything that that window touches. Okay. Having the arrow selected kind of screwed me up at times because I would select something, I would go to move over, and it would draw a new box. So what I do is I actually keep it on the hand. That's going to move my drawing. But if you hold down your right mouse button instead of the left, you can actually draw those same windows. So just hold your right mouse button down, draw a window to select things. So I don't have to switch modes at all. I just leave it in the hand mode. Across here, I can select if I want to drive it to a particular scale. I can do that. If I go to my combined drawing here, you'll see that there's 36 pages and I'm on page 2. If I want to go to page 5, I can just highlight that, click 5, enter, and it will take me to the 5th page in that set. And I can also use the previous page, first page, next page, last page, and then as I'm navigating through all of those, I always have my previous view and next view buttons, so I can go back to where I was previously, go back a couple, and go forward again. These are extremely nice when you're going through a set of drawings and you're looking at the plan and you go to the section cut. You can very quickly go back to the plan view. And then over here, I've got my disable line weights highlighted blue turned on. Let's see what that looks like. This is a good example. You can see all the line weights are pretty thin here. When I turn this off, that's not a good example. Let's go back to here, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to do this quick. You can see how thin these wall lines are. When I turn on my line weights, you can see they get much thicker. So for me, that proposes a challenge when I start to do measurements and things like that. So I like to make sure that I leave those off by default, so I can easily know where the center, where the exact line is, and do measurements to those. Okay, next below that is your status bar. Down here we've got grids that you can turn on. You can see those dots. We can also snap to the grids when we're drawing lines and doing markups. I never turn those on because they actually are not tied to anything in the drawing. It's related to the page, the paper, not the drawing itself. So I think if I were doing measurements or anything like that, it might click on something and lock into it where I don't want it to. So I turn those off. Speaking of snaps, we talked about those earlier. These are the buttons, the shortcut buttons for snap to content. So if I come up here and draw a line, snap to content means that it will snap to the nearest. It'll drop in on that midpoint, intersection, endpoint, and I can click and draw a line, knowing that it's snapping to the end of that line. Next one here is snap to markup. So I can snap to the markups, the midpoint, the endpoints, things like that. Here's another spot for our reuse markup tool. So you noticed I'm just continually drawing lines one after the other. That's because this is highlighted blue and turned on. Okay, and one last thing, the synchronized views. I want to show you how that works. I'm going to open up a different drawing here, show you a little tip in the process. If I come in here to my file access, I'm going to go into my drawings, open that one, right click, open folder, and open a new version of that same drawing. So I already have A open. I'm going to open up C. I'm going to minimize that. I've got A here and C here. I'm going to use that split vertical. So I have a duplicate of C over here, so I can close this one. And now I have A next to C. And I want to see what the differences are between these drawings. So I'm just going to turn on this synchronized views. So it's highlighted blue. And now wherever I navigate in this drawing, it's going to follow it on this one. If I move on this one, it's going to follow it over here. So it doesn't matter which one you're moving, these are going to stay synchronized. And just a warning, that is based on the position on the paper, not the actual context of the PDF. So if this is all moved over on one of them and not the other, it won't be as in sync as it is if they're identical sheet to sheet. So keep that in mind. We can go through here and try to look at what the differences are. So here we have a rounded wall. This one's squared off. We can see those differences because we have these side by side. So there we have it. We went through the menus with all the settings and preferences up there. And I showed you some buttons down here across the bottom for settings and preferences. That was a long list. So I hope you took some notes. I hope you enjoyed the detailed introduction of parts of the interface in Bluebeam Revu. Next month, we'll be covering the side panels on the left and the right over here, show you what tools are available, introduce you to a lot of those. A lot of powerful features in those panels as well. So be sure to register for that one next month. All who registered today will receive an email with that registration link, and we'll see you guys next month. Thanks for joining us. We'll hang out for questions and answer as many as we can. So thank you guys.
Brilliant there. Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody found that really useful. It amazes me all the time how much knowledge Troy holds in Bluebeam and the little tips and tricks that he puts across. So we do have some questions. I'll address a couple of those because I think there was a little bit of a problem with the sound recording at the start. So apologies for anybody that missed the first couple of minutes. So Troy's on the line now as well. So quickly just going to run through some questions. Troy, we've got a question asking about preferred locations where you can export and save profiles to your computer. Is that something you can pick up for us?
Sure. That all depends on how you want to do that with those saved profiles and folders. If you want to share those with other users within the office, that could be a network location. And then I showed you where you go in the settings and preferences to map to those. You could do it that way. When I do a backup of my setup, I typically will save that on an external drive. Like I said last week, my computer crashed, so I was concerned about all of the things that I had backed up and saved directly on my computer were virtually no good. So because I couldn't get to them, so it's always good to save those on an external location as well.
Perfect. Okay. So another question. If the PDF has been flattened, would Bluebeam be able to create vectors, text, and tables?
So if it's flattened, the quality of the PDFs is always going to be depending on where it came from. So if it's vector-based already coming directly from CAD, you shouldn't have any problem with that. There is a tool in the extreme version called OCR that you'd be able to run on a document that's raster, and that will turn the pixels into lines and text as best it can. And the quality of the PDF is going to determine the quality of the results of the OCR as well. So you can still work with those, but results may vary.
Perfect. Okay. Just a couple more to go. I'm conscious of the fact we're running out of time. When using dynamic fill in the area, it often spills beyond the lines. Why would that be?
So sometimes it will recognize, it'll find a crack in the wall or something like that, and it'll bleed through. A lot of times from what I've seen, it could also be, in my case, it could also be user error when I try to, when I move my paint bucket towards a wall or something like that. Oftentimes I'll accidentally touch the wall and then it'll bleed through. Whatever the case may be, if it bleeds through, you can always add a boundary and draw a line where that's leaking through, and it will cut off the paint that was spilled. Just stop pouring the paint, go back up to the boundary, and add that boundary line in there, and that should clean up a little. That should clean up better.
Okay, brilliant. So there is another question from a relatively new user. That's fine. I mean, I think we're covering both experienced and new users. When you open 5 DWGs, for example, can you work and measure on all 5 DWGs as one PDF document?
So let me make sure I understand the question. They have 5 PDFs open, and they want to measure those into one.
5 DWGs. Could you put all 5 DWGs into one PDF?
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you've got 5 DWGs in AutoCAD and you print all those to a PDF, yeah, you could combine those PDFs into one document or have separate documents. Bluebeam Revu doesn't open the DWG directly. You have to print those to a PDF first.
Okay, brilliant. So we've reached the end of the webinar, so thank you everybody for attending, especially your engagement, the questions. We always welcome comments and feedback because it allows us to help and improve our service, and especially the direction we take these webinars in the future. We endeavour to run one of these every month. So if there's any feedback, if there's any topics you want us to cover, feel free to drop us a line. But the next webinar we've got scheduled is on the 26th of June. As Troy mentioned earlier on, we're going to be focusing on tool panels. Invites will be sent out shortly. So if there's any feedback prior to that, if there's any comments about what you've seen covered today, feel free to reach out to us. But thank you very much, and hope you guys all have a great day.